The matter of a will. One of the lesser-known documents that has been indispensable to the steady growth and stability of Sri Ramanasramam is the will of Sri Ramana Maharshi. In our first article, The Matter of a Will, its genesis and contents are described. Ramana Leela is the Telugu biography of the Maharshi. There are many authentic incidents and conversations narrated in it that are not found in English publications. Dr. Lingeswara Rao translates some of the interesting passages for us. Following is the concluding story of Sri Kunju Swami's early life, as he describes his first meetings with the Sage of Arunachala in 1922. And in Films from Sri Ramanasramam, we are taken to the December 1948 Jayanti celebrations, the Maharishi's 69th birthday. Born at Tiruchuri, a village in the present Ramnath district, on the 30th of December 1879, I left my native home for good in my 17th year under divine inspiration in quest of Arunachala and reached Tiruvannamalai in the year 1896. Thus reads the first sentence of the will of Sri Ramana Maharshi, dated 6th of April 1938. How did one who never touched money from his 17th year, never openly claimed ownership of any object, land or buildings, come to sign a document which listed numerous pieces of property, movable and immovable, and even bank accounts as his very own possessions? Did he really desire to do this, or was he duped into it by a management who feared loss of executive powers after his demise? How did this all come about? Shortly before the Maharishi signed his last will and testament, a legal case that had been stuck in the courts for almost 2 decades was finally resolved. An old devotee of the Maharishi claimed the ashrama property as his own and declared himself to be the only legal manager. This protracted litigation caused considerable worry, and when it was finally settled, a group of senior disciples approached the sage for help and advice. They explained that even with him there, they had been beggared in this way, and there was no knowing what might happen when he was no longer there to protect them. What would he advise? What did they suggest? He asked them. That the ashrama should be controlled by a board of trustees appointed by him might be a good idea, they thought. But Bhagavan disagreed. Trustees would take no real interest in running the ashrama, which they will only use for milch cow for their own ends. It would be better that those who are tied to it permanently by blood and sentiment be given the permanent management. The matter was discussed, and it was decided that in that case the best thing to do was to make a will. Bhagavan agreed to this suggestion. Now the question arises, can a world-renowned renunciate, such as the Maharishi, establish a legal claim to property and assets which he never had previously acknowledged as his? Will the courts accept such a claim? We discover that a precedent in this matter had already occurred on 2 occasions. First, in 1933, when the Maharishi executed and registered a general power of attorney in favor of Niranjananda Swami, his brother and manager of Sri Ramanasramam. And again, these same issues were raised on 15th of November 1936, when the sage was examined on commission for the local district municip's court relating to the protracted litigation mentioned above? Question. You left home at an early age because you had no attachment for home and property, but here there is property in the ashrama. How is it? Maharishi, I do not seek it. Property is thrust on me. I neither love nor hate it. Question. Are they given to you? Maharishi, they are given to the Swami, whoever he may be. But the body is considered the Swami in the world. That body is this. It reduces itself to myself. Question. How did you approve the building of Skandashramam on the hill, which was temple land, without previously obtaining permission from the authorities? Maharishi, guided by the same power which made me come here and reside on the hill. Question. You do not touch money nor other offerings, I trust? Maharishi, people sometimes place fruits in my hands. I touch them. Question. If you receive one kind of offering, why should you not receive money also? Maharishi, I cannot eat money. What shall I do with it? Why should I take that with which I do not know what to do? During this commission, he is also recorded to have said, properties came and I accepted them. I agree that owning properties relates to worldly affairs, but I do not hate worldly affairs. I used to accept anything if given to me. Monies were given only on my behalf. He further declared that persons who were looking after the activities of the ashrama were only doing his will. So, it seems, for the sake of maintaining general order and continuity in the affairs of Sri Ramanasramam, he chose to imply ownership of the properties to himself. And knowing full well a time would come when his physical presence would be withdrawn, he favored a hereditary form of management to be established. It was believed that there was no other means of ensuring this but through a will. So, a will was drafted in 1938. K. Sundaram Chetty, a retired High Court judge from Salem, was entrusted with the work. When the draft was ready, the Maharishi was led to the present stores building, where a half dozen senior devotees of social distinction were waiting. Class by class, the will was read out, discussed, and a few alterations were made. Then the Maharishi was asked if he clearly understood and agreed with each class. Only when his consent was given did they go on to the next class. Bhagavan, who was not in the practice of signing his name, affixed a mark X on every page of the will, indicating his approval, and as a final authorization, he made a line dash in lieu of a signature. The line followed this declaration. In token of my execution of this document, I affix my mark and also authorize G. Sambasiva Rao to sign for me in my presence, as I have not been in the habit of affixing my signature. The final document was signed by witnesses, and the Maharishi then officially filed the will for registration by handing it over to the sub-registrar of Tiruvannamalai. He actually told this sub-registrar that he has executed this will and then requested him to register it. It appears that the learned devotees took great pains to ensure that no loopholes regarding the will's authenticity and powers could arise. But several years later, the ashrama authorities decided that there were some apparent loopholes in the document. Another will was drawn up, and the manager, along with his supporters, approached Bhagavan and explained the situation. The sage was then lying in the new hall, already stricken with his final illness. When he was requested to certify and sign the new will, he flatly refused. "Is there not a will already?" he asked, and there the matter ended. The prudence of having such a will executed was soon realized after the Maharishi Mahanirvana. Several cases have already gone before the courts regarding ownership and management. This will has done more to ensure the stability and managed growth of Sri Ramanasramam than any other writ. With Niranjanada Swami's son T.N. Venkatraman and all his three sons now fully engaged in managing the affairs of Sri Ramanasramam, the benefits of the sage's decision in having a hereditary management is fully being realized. And who could actually doubt that the Maharishi's decision would not turn out to be the best decision? The 1500 word text of the actual will has two parts. First, a 700 word biographical declaration, and then a 9-item schedule of properties. I did not belong to any order of sannyasis, but if a name has to be given for my status, I am an Atyasramite. In course of time, several contributions in the shape of monies came to be made as gifts to me, and with those monies, halls, storerooms, and other buildings were built, and also wells and ponds and other amenities came into existence. All the properties hereunder described and comprised in what is called Sri Ramanasramam, and the accretions thereto are dedicated by me to the idol already installed and consecrated therein, namely Sri Bodheshwara Swami, and also to the idol or statue as my symbol to be installed and consecrated after my demise on my samadhi at a suitable place in the ashram itself. I appoint my brother Niranjanada Swami as the sole manager. After him, his son T.N. Venkatraman Iyer will be the sole manager. This right of management or trusteeship will vest as a hereditary right in the latter's family, so as to devolve successively on his lineal male descendants from generation to generation. As far as possible, make Sri Ramanasramam a center for the diffusion of spiritual knowledge and a place of sanctity by affording scope for the fulfillment of objects germane to the advancement of spirituality. After meeting the necessary expenses of the ashram, namely the puja, naivedyam, etc. of the idols, the manager will take out of the surplus income what is necessary for the maintenance of himself and his family. Today, Sri Ramanasramam covers an area of 14 acres. The sanctified Matrubudeshwara temple and the spacious Samadhi hall are surrounded by guest houses containing about 50 units. Also, there are 2 dormitories, a dispensary, a Vedic school for boys, a gosala for cows, offices, a bookstore, a large kitchen and dining hall, the famed old hall where the Maharishi lived for over 20 years, wells, gardens, a coconut grove, and other structures and facilities, all aesthetically arranged and studiously maintained. Another guest house compound across the street contains 2 dormitories, guest houses with 20 units, and a 3-story structure housing Sri Ramana Centenary Library. On the hill, Sri Ramanasramam has custody of Skandashramam and has recently acquired the Virupaksha cave, where the Maharishi lived for about 15 years. The renown of Sri Ramana Maharshi and Sri Ramanasramam has been steadily growing since the demise of the sage. This growth will certainly continue as greater numbers of seekers from around the world experience the efficacy of the Maharishi's teachings, supported by his continued guidance and grace. The will of the sage is an important document that will ensure the smooth transmission of Atmajnana, self-knowledge, to a weary world suffering under the illusion that the self is limited to this empirical body.